gentlemen, Tym Moss loves men. Ladies and gentlemen, Tym Moss.
It's a special talent of mine. Anyway, Arnold Rodriguez, ladies and gentlemen. I'm working with Arnold on a one-man show right now, and this is an excerpt from that show that we've been writing. It's called Reptiles and Monsters by Tym Moss. I really did not want to tell this embarrassing story, but Arnold made me. He's such a little bitch. It was my Uncle Dave's favorite story to tell about me. So since he's no longer on this earth, I'll tell it for you, Uncle Dave. 12 Mile, Indiana. There is such a place. I know. I grew up there. I grew up in the countryside, a couple miles from this very small town called 12 Mile, Indiana. And not because it was 12 miles long. I don't even think it was 1 mile long. It was called 12 Mile because it was 12 miles from Logansport. You know, Logansport. Anyway, my cousin Diana, who I've always called Di, she lived down the road from us. Now, by New York standards, that was probably the distance of about 15 blocks. With the difference being that within those 15 blocks, there was only one other house halfway in between us. We were really in the countryside. Growing up, we were the same age, and hardly a day passed that we didn't see each other. Either I was in their house or she was over in our house. Di and I were so close. We'd do everything together. We'd play together, we'd nap together, we'd take baths together. One time we were taking a bath together, and we were probably about 4 or 5 years old, when, I don't know why, but I decided to poop. So there was this piece of poo floating on the water. Oh wait, there's more. And Di starts screaming her head off because it's moving toward her like Jaws. Like Jaws. Oh, that reminds me of the time Di and I were in Tennessee in a motel pool with Jaws and scared to death. But that's another show. Back to the poo-filled tub and Di screaming. So the door bursts open, and in flies Uncle Dave and Aunt Orla, and Di screaming, "Look! Look!" Uncle Dave views the prehistoric-sized poo that's floating on the water, and then he looks at me and he asks, "Did you do that?" And I said, "Yep." Then he asked, "Does your mother let you do this at home?" And I looked him straight in the face with a grin and I said, "Yep." Well, they stormed out of the bathroom real fast and slammed the door behind them, and Di and I were scared because we knew they were outside planning my punishment. It wasn't until years later that he admitted, while telling this story every time we got together, that the reason they went flying out of the bathroom wasn't because they were planning my punishment, but because they had to burst into laughter. They thought it was so funny. They were standing right outside the bathroom the whole time, bent over in laughter. And even when he told it years later, he would still get to laughing so hard that he could hardly finish it. So there, Uncle Dave, I finally told your story. So fast forward. We were 10 years old. Uncle Dave and Aunt Orla decided they were going to move to Florida. My world was over. I was devastated. I wouldn't get to see Di every day. How could I live? That was a very traumatic time for me when she moved. So what we would do was every summer after school let out, either she would come to Indiana for the summer, or I would go to Florida for the summer. Oh, those were great summers. They also lived out in the countryside. However, the countryside in Florida is a lot different than the countryside in Indiana. Buckle up, kids, here we go. Fast forward again to high school graduation. Di came to Indiana for my graduation. Oh, and we almost got arrested the night before. but that's another show too. Then after my graduation, we went back to Florida for hers. Well, she still had a week of school left before she graduated, so I was at their home every day for a week, bored. There was a boat ramp near them that we used to go swimming at in this lagoon, and the water was still and warm, and it was not real deep. So one afternoon, I went down there to cool off. As I wandered out into the water about 20 or 30 feet from the shore, it's still only about waist deep. So I could hear the theme song from Days of Our Lives playing on this woman's television set who lived across the road. Her kitchen window faced the boat ramp, so I could see her doing the dishes and watching Days of Our Lives. So I'm turned facing the shore and this woman's home when I hear this grunting behind me. Now, growing up in Indiana, I could only associate that sound with a pig. So I thought, what is a pig doing in the water in Florida? So I turn around, I look across the water for a pig, and there's nothing there except this log floating over there. So I turn back around, I'm facing the shore, and I hear that damn pig grunting again. I turn around and I look across the water, there's nothing except that log still floating, there's no pig drowning or anything. Strange. So I turn back, face the shore in this woman's home again, and I hear that pig again. But when I turn around this time, I noticed that log started to move. I also noticed its teeth and its eyes. It was an alligator! Now, growing up in Indiana, I don't know nothing about no alligators. Except for the movie where there was one in the New York City sewer that grew really big and it broke out and it ate people and tore them to bits, and I did not want to get torn to bits. So I start running toward the shore, lifting my feet up out of the water like this, screaming, "Alligator! I ran so fast out of that water, and the woman doing her dishes and watching Days of Our Lives, she just looks at me, shook her head, rolled her eyes. She didn't even care that I almost got eaten alive. She was almost pissed that I interrupted her soap opera before the commercial time. Well, that night, I was telling of my near-death experience to Di and Uncle Dave and Aunt Orla. They didn't even find it scary at all. In fact, they were all laughing very hard at me. They said that, oh, alligators, they're like snakes. They're more afraid of you than you are of them. I don't know, I was always very scared of snakes. Very scared. So after talking to them that night, they talked me into going back and swimming at the boat ramp again. So next day I get there, I see the woman doing her dishes at the kitchen's window, and I hear the theme to Days of Our Lives playing again on her television. I very cautiously wade out into the water with my back to the shore. I only went about 15 feet this time. I'm watching for alligators, when all of a sudden I notice, out of the corner of my eye, some weeds that were kind of behind me start to move. So I turn around now, and the weeds are between me and the shore. When all of a sudden, out from the weeds, underneath the water, which I had never seen before, comes a big black snake that was longer than my arm, and it's feeding or picking up stuff on the floor of the lagoon, and it's heading toward my feet. Once again, I've always been very afraid of snakes. Now the lake floor was mucky, so I start to dip my toes into the dirt to hide them. Since the water was only up to my waist, I'm flailing my arms like this above the water, going, "Just do it! Do it!" gone by me, but as it did it, it must have turned or something because it just flicked my leg. And there I went again. I'm running back up to the shore, legs up over the water, like this. Only this time I'm screaming, "Snake!" The days of our lives lady, standing in her window again. She just looks at me, she shakes her head, and she's rolling her eyes. Probably thinking, those damn Yankees from up north. If I would have known then what I know now, I would have loved to have ruined her soap opera for her. Marlene's not dead, it's her identical twin sister, Samantha, you bitch! To hell with being more afraid of them than more afraid of me than I am of them. I never went back to that boat ramp again. It's now closed and condemned. It is so overrun now by poisonous snakes and alligators that you can't even stick your hand in it. I tried to tell him. Fast forward a few more years. We're in our early 20s now. Di picked me up and said they were having a cookout over at some neighbors. So as we were driving toward her place, I said, I don't know what it is, but every time I come down here, I always see an alligator or a snake or some creepy creature comes crawling out. And Di just laughed and she says, you know, really? She goes, I haven't seen a snake or an alligator in like 2 years. I was thinking, well, good, maybe they're all gone. So we arrive in darkness to their friends, who live next door to the Days of Our Lives lady. Only since it was prime time, the bitch was probably watching Dallas or something. Now, they have a fence all the way around their house and their yard. So as we went in, Di said the men are out back fishing. So we went back to say hello to Matt, which is Di's husband, and David, her son, who always called me Uncle Tim. Then she goes back into the house. Excuse me. I sit down in the grass with David, who's petting this very large pit bull. Now, this was in the early 80s, when all of I knew of pit bulls were that they bit into you and they would not let go, and every now and then in the paper you'd read how they killed or mangled some small child. David assured me that he was friendly, so I very cautiously patted him on the head. And he turns around and sits down right in between the two of us. Plops himself down. So I turned my attention to the fishing because, well, it was dark, I only had sandals on, and I was afraid to walk back to the house by myself. So I sat there for someone to say they were going back to the house so I didn't have to walk alone. Now, this river that they were fishing out of was very still water. That's when I noticed the rifle leaning up against a tree. Now, I have never liked guns, and I do not like the loud bang that they make either. So I asked, well, if they're fishing, why do they need a rifle? About that time, someone yells, "Snake!" And they pick up the rifle, shoot it out 2 or 3 times in the water. Bang, bang, bang! I have been there 10 minutes, and there's already a snake. It's okay. Good, they got the snake, it's okay. I wonder if anybody's going to the house yet. When about that time, someone yells, "Alligator!" Picks up the bang, bang, bang! I'm starting to breathe really heavy. And I'm thinking, why do they always have to come out when I'm here? Meanwhile, I'm starting to nervously pet the monster pit bull without even thinking about it. I'm just petting this huge head on this muscly little frame. Yes, he seems to be okay. Are you going to the house soon? I'm ready to go back. That's when I hear snake, bang, 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 alligator, bang, 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 possum, bang, bang. Damn it, then I hear, damn it, I missed them all, they got away. What the hell are they? must have been walking their dog back on the street behind us, because this pit bull heard it. In one very fast motion, this huge-headed pit bull spins his body around. He's actually looking over my shoulder, but I don't know that. One moment I'm petting him, and a second later he whips around. We're face to face, and he goes, and jumps over my left shoulder. After losing my breath for a moment, while lying on my back in the grass, I finally decided, fuck this! I don't care if I get bitten, eaten, mauled, or poisoned. I'm going to make my way back to the house. And as I'm walking by the Days of Our Lives / Dallas / go fuck yourself, lady. As I'm walking by her house, I just had to yell, Kristen's the one who shot JR, you bitch!